Hi, I'm Suneera, and I'm a mom of two, a daughter of an immigrant, and an unlikely entrepreneur who went from scaling an idea to $1 billion business. Yes, $1 billion business. Along the way, I learned that less than 2% of female founders ever hit 1 million in revenue, and I became obsessed on a mission to change that. I believe that there is so much gatekeeping in business knowledge, and that we as female entrepreneurs should be learning from other female founders and leaders who have broken the statistics. Since I never went to CEO school, I've had to learn it all the hard way, but you shouldn't have to, because we believe that you deserve to have it all. And honestly, nothing bad happens when women make more money. Grab a seat because class is officially in session. Welcome to CEO School. Hey everyone, welcome to CEO School. I'm your host, Suneera, and today we have Priya Chandrashekhar on set here today, who is a medical communications expert. So before you're like, why do we have a medical communications expert here? I will tell you, I have been working with Priya for the last couple of years now. She's been part of the most amazing cohorts for CEO School. I've seen her business scale and grow, and it makes me so happy when I get to bring our women to the stage, to the show, because this show is all about learning from women who have made it to the 2% club. And I have seen Priya's just growth firsthand. And she is one of just the most brilliant strategists that I've met. And she is literally somebody that I seek advice from. And one of her special skill sets is really on strategy and go-to-market strategy. So we're like, what is go-to-market strategy, and why today's episode is important is because it doesn't matter what stage of business you're in. When we start our companies, we create this whole business plan, and we're like, here's who our ideal customer is going to be, here's our value proposition, here's what makes us different, and then we write it all down, we put it all together, and then we make this pretty plan, and then we shove it in the drawer after it's completed, and then we don't revisit it at all. And then it's 6 months later, markets are changing, competitors are changing, you've changed, right? Your business has changed, and we don't revisit it. It's another year goes by, another year goes by, and you think you're adjusting, but you're not actually taking the time to work on your business to make sure that your value proposition, your go-to-market strategy, and these things are actually aligned with where you are in your business today. And so Priya actually creates these communication strategies for specifically her field of expertise is in the medical field. So she does medical device companies, pharmaceuticals, biotech. She's worked with, all kinds of major agencies that do what they call market access for these drugs and FDA clearance and all this fancy healthcare stuff, which we're not going to talk about today. So we're not talking about healthcare today, but she helps these pharmaceutical companies when they bring a new drug to market or a new product to market, how they actually go through, how they get to market, how they define the value proposition. So she does this for these companies. So she's been doing that for over a decade. That is what she gets paid to do. And I met her a couple years ago, and then last year at the CEO School retreat, we were working on her business. I'll share a little story here before I bring her up to the stage. We were working on her business, and she's a consulting agency. She charges this hourly structure for her company. And, I was challenging her a bit, and I said, Priya, you've had so much success here. I think it's time that you can use these, what you're doing, to branch out to other segments, to other verticals, and even think about your product strategy in a little bit more of a scalable way. Because she'd kind of hit this, she's at the top, and she's kind of hit this plateau kept coming up. And she was pushing back during the retreat time of no, I think we're just, this is what it is. My industry is different. And then she gets on the plane ride, and then she's texting me. She's like, oh my God, I just redid my entire product strategy, and it worked. And this year has just been such a phenomenal growth year for Priya. And she's branched out to other industries. And now she's doing, market access and strategy to different verticals. She's actually now mentoring. She's on the advisory board of the most unbelievable female startups as well, helping guide them on brand strategy, value strategy, pricing strategy, and go-to-market strategy. And so when we were together last time in person, I said when you're coming down for the next retreat, please come to the studio. I've got to have you in person, and you've got to, one, teach a masterclass on like value proposition strategy. And then two, we've got to share it with all of our CEO School audience. So she's graciously said yes. And I'm so excited today to welcome Priya Chandrashekhar, one of our alumni at CEO School, part of the 2% Club at CEO School, here to help all of you with pricing and go-to-market strategy. Priya, welcome to CEO School.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes.
I'm so excited to be here. I mean, I've been listening to your podcasts, been to a couple of retreats, been in your mastermind. So I'm very much a CEO School student.
You really are. You really are. You really are. And it's so incredible. And we just closed up. We just did this like amazing masterclass, which I cannot wait for you to learn from. We're not going to get into like too much of like the how, but we'll get into the why. The masterclass is for all of our members at CEO School. So if you're part of any of our programs at CEO School, you get access to these amazing classes that we do with amazing experts, with like worksheets, the whole like everything. So entire Priya strategy that she charges, thousands of dollars of consulting like strategy for. It's just for us. Like she's literally just gave us access to all of it. But I'm so excited for you guys. We're definitely gonna pick her brain. You're gonna get a lot out of today's episode. But before we do, Priya, could you take us a little bit back about your background? How did you start? Like, how did you become a CEO? Tell us about your entrepreneurial journey.
If you had told me that when I was, I would say even when I was in college, that this is what I'd be doing, I would have been like, you are out of your mind. You're talking about someone else.
That's all of us, girl.
Yeah.
That's all of us as entrepreneurs.
I had no idea. So I started down this path of expecting that I was going to go to med school. I thought that I was going to be a doctor. I remember, we were on a trip, I think it might have been we were going to India or something. I don't remember what it was, but I was a voracious reader. I read a lot of books, and I didn't have anything to read, so I found this physiology textbook, and I just started reading it. This is when I think I was 8 or 9, maybe I was 10. I don't know. I was such a big science nerd. I think it goes back to when I was born in India, but when we came to this country, my dad was doing his PhD, and my mom worked in a lab at the University of Pittsburgh, and I used to just go and hang out with them in the lab. And so I think
little
just
Priya,
being
little biologist,
just that's what I did. I mean, I used to be I'm, their colleagues would go and take me to see some of the animals they were working on, or whatever, the slides that they were looking at. That was just my life. And I think that, and I don't.
So funny.
I
my
loved
life
it.
was watching my parents work too. So that's so interesting.
Yeah. So so my thought process was I like science, and so I assumed that that's what you be a doctor if you like science. And so I kind of progressed along that path, and I was in college, and I didn't know that this entire world of medcoms exists, medical communications exists, and I totally fell into it. I think my work study ran out. And so I applied for a job as a lab tech, and it ended up actually being a scientific writer position. And I ended up kind of progressing along that path, and that became my career. And so I was in this weird situation because I worked all through college. So when I graduated, I wasn't really entry level, but I also wasn't experienced in theory. So I ended up getting these consulting type opportunities at different pharma companies. And so I was a consultant, and I worked with global teams. I did scientific communications for them. But I was traveling, and I wanted to stop traveling. So I went from the frying pan into the fire, and I got a job at an agency. And it happened to be a market access agency. I'd never done anything with market access. And it was kind of the so what of the science, right? Because you have all of this science, but how does that science function in the real world is what what it's all about, right? And so I was like, oh, this makes perfect sense. Like, it's how, like, what is the governmental impact? What is the societal impact? What's the health economics? Like, all that stuff. And it's really the business of the science. And so I loved it. But the approach was always very marketing heavy. And I think that there's a more strategic way to approach it. And I kept trying to change things from within these organizations, because by that time I had reached like leadership roles. It didn't really work because it was too different from how things are normally done. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do it on my own. I thought that I was just going to be an independent consultant. I think that lasted all of like 6 months, because the projects and responsibilities were just bigger and bigger. And I was like, okay, I think I need to rethink this. I need to scale, hire a team, all the things. And
isn't it funny, like, how as women we sometimes we just limit ourselves? Like, I don't understand that. Like, it is part of something in our brain DNA. I hope scientists, please call your scientists, study our brains on why we think like it's not possible for us, right? And we, even before we get started in business, we get started and we're like, well, I'm just going to do this for this. I'm just going to do this for this. And we're not even thinking about these like giant. We're not even thinking about having a team or scaling up.
Yeah.
Like, we've limited ourselves and we're like, oh, now we're here and now it's growing. Now the work is piling up. Oh, now we need a team, right? It's like we don't plan for it to begin with. And it's frustrating. It's so frustrating. And that's why it's so important, because you can't be what you can't see. And that's why it's so important that we have women like Priya. We have women, that are here on this show every single week here inside of CEO School at these masterclasses, doing these things so that we can all see like that version that needs to be at every point the example of entrepreneurship, because we just look at entrepreneurship in one singular lens, which is stale, pale, and male, and done exactly the same way. And that narrative has to change for us as women, because I'm so over it. And I wish, I'm getting really like passionate about this, because I wish when I was in, that I saw it sooner.
Yeah.
And I knew that, like, I think in the beginning, even when I got started, it was the same thing of like, oh, I fell into it because I was working for a payments company. I fell into it. And then I was like, oh, I just want to be an agent, or I just want to do this, and I just want to do that. And I wish I would have had it backwards to say, I'm going to go do this. And this is my vision. And I learned it when I started seeing other people, but it was so hard for me to apply without seeing it. So seeing, like, what you seeing is everything, because you really can't be what you can't see. And so just wanted to pause you in that moment right there, Priya, so you started thinking, you're like, I'm just going to be an independent consultant. Yeah. Of course that didn't happen, because you're brilliant. And so of course it's going to happen, because you're brilliant and you're an expert. And of course you scaled.
Yeah. And it's funny, because I had seen women who were in leadership roles as employees at companies. And it's different. Like it's a different, like, being in a leadership role, and it's, their leadership is leadership.
Entrepreneurial.
Still, all of that stuff is true. It's very different to completely start something from scratch.
Take it home.
Totally different experience. Yeah. It's a different way of thinking. It's a different approach. Like, it's a different commitment. It's a different approach to life. It's, all the things. And I just, I think I had wrapped my head around the independent consultant approach, but then, like, for the longest time, we called ourselves a freelance team. Like, I didn't even want to, like, fully call myself an agency. Like, I feel like I was almost like, I spent the first couple of years, like, almost fighting the growth.
Yes, why?
I don't know why. I don't know. I don't know.
We don't have the answers. Obviously, it's like a rhetorical question.
No, it is. Yeah.
Right? But, like, it's so frustrating. But this is a story for all of us, right? So I hope you're feeling it. I'm feeling it. And I'm so glad that you're, like, that's not the case. Because you are so brilliant and so successful. So then you were this freelance team, but you were actually, you're full-on friggin' agency.
We were doing all the things. And, I think now how I've reframed that is we were white labeling our services through other agencies. So we were kind of had these B2B partnerships with other agencies. And Honestly, I was just intimidated. I was intimidated. Like, I feel like I didn't have the full belief in our own value. Like, I think, you know, I had demonstrated it as an employee, but then, to own it, I think I was just nervous about it, even though I had done it. But
It's that imposter syndrome
It
again.
is.
Yes.
It is. It's the worst. And I mean, to be fair, like, I started the company, and then 2 weeks later found out I was pregnant with twins. So, like, there are a few things there. But
So success happened. It's been a decade. I mean, you've brought so many different companies to market. You are like PFG Medcom is one of the top consulting companies for, pharmaceutical strategy. And now what's been really exciting is that you've kind of scaled to the top at your game in your industry, in your vertical. And you are now branching out to other verticals to do the same communication strategy, value proposition strategy, for startups, and still slightly to do with like medical companies, but still now it's like being branched out, and you're scaling just at this like next level. Congratulations. I mean, another like 7-figure year this year is about to happen for her. She's part of our 7-figure mastermind, and we're like just so excited. I know like a big contract's coming in specifically this week, and you already have like the next contracts for like next year. Like Priya is one of the greatest CEOs that I know, and I'm so excited. I'm so excited for you to learn from her. Speaking of value, because that's what today's episode is about. So Priya's a badass. She's a mom, a Marvel junkie, a scientist, and just all the things. I mean, she's literally done like Harvard's like health innovation camps. Like she's brilliant. And she also advises, like you advise startups. She sits on like a ton of like advisory boards for companies as well. And why I wanted to bring her here today was specifically on this workshop that she leads on value proposition and positioning. And this is what she does for these pharmaceutical brands. And then we just did this amazing masterclass for all of the women at CEO School. And you have to go watch this. It's all part of our membership. And so all the links are in the show notes. If you're not part of it, like I give you a reason every single week to be part of it. Like stop waiting, get in the room. And we literally broke down the difference on like how we need to be thinking about, our unique value proposition. And it's not the stuff that like, it's not level 1 stuff. I mean, this is like next level things on, once we've understood what our product, company, service is, or our ideal customer is, this is like the 2.0 of understanding who our stakeholders are, the 2.0 on the framework on pricing strategy, the 2.0 framework on like our value ladder. And so one of the things on value that really struck out for me is the why behind your value, because value is, like you said, it's all about, I'll let you say it. It's not about volume. So what is value really about?
Yeah. So I have had this conversation with so many people, especially within the CEO School Network. It's, when you're thinking about your product offering and you're thinking about your pricing and you're thinking about all these different pieces, volume, I was guilty of doing this before. Being in a service-based company, we were charging for the volume of hours that we were spending rather than the value that the customer was getting. And so that's important, because if something takes me 10 hours to do, right? It takes our company, let's make easy numbers, right? 10 hours to do. But it is increasing the company's revenue, the client's revenue by, X, 10X, right? What you should be charging on is what is the value that the company is getting, not those 10 hours.
Not the volume. So pricing, in conclusion, is not based on volume. Pricing is based on value. And one of the examples, right, Priya, that we were talking about is the water bottle. Right? So we have the water bottle, at Costco, and it's, the pricing for that value at Costco, it's 50 cents because you get a case of it, you got to take it home, you got to do whatever, it's for later. That value of that water bottle is 50 cents. That same water bottle, when you have it at the checkout of the grocery store at CVS or you need it in that moment, that water bottle is like $2.29 for that same water bottle. That's like 50 cents in at a different value. right? Still same water bottle, right? Then that same water bottle at like a concert or an event or, at a game is $5 or $6 for that same water bottle at that venue. But that pricing of that water bottle is different based on the location, based on the benefit to the customer at that given moment. So be the water bottle at the airport. That's who we want to be, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's also, one piece is, and the other thing that we talked about in the masterclass is, it's not just about being better. It's about being different.
Ooh,
and
yes.
It's also communicating that to the customer. And why should your customer choose you?
Yes, the unique value proposition work that we did in that masterclass. So is so important. I'd love to kind of share high level, right? So it's all a water bottle, right? So it's all the same water bottles. How do we define what's different, right? So it's not about being better. It's not like, okay, this water is better. It's really about being different and having that unique value proposition. So Priya, could you give us a little high level on like why this is important? How do you define that unique value proposition and like where this can apply to? It doesn't matter what stage of business you're in.
Yeah, it really doesn't make a difference. And I think, Suneera's right. Like going through this value proposition exercise is so important yearly. I was guilty of doing the same thing where we were kind of rinse and repeat the same thing over and over again. And until last year, kind of going through that big exercise of reworking everything, it made such a big difference because it was really talking about the value that we were providing to the customer. Before, I think, our customers would look at, let me backtrack a little bit. The way that I would talk about our services, I would kind of say things like, well, you're using all these different kind of agencies to do XYZ, whereas we'll give you a more strategic perspective and we'll help you with but then people were saying, oh, but we like those silos. That's just how we operate. And that's not true. It's just because that they've done things a certain way doesn't mean that that's the way to do it. It's just that we were not able to communicate our value effectively because our value proposition was a mess. When we reorganized our product set, reorganized our value proposition, and really were able to communicate how we were going to help that customer get from where they were at to where they need to be, and help them get their brands to where they need to be, and help them launch, help them do all these different things, it made such a big difference to how they responded to us. So the components of the value proposition, which again, I'm going to refer you back to that masterclass because it goes into way more detail, but the major components of your value proposition is really what's the unmet need for the customer? Mm-hmm. What's the burden of the unmet? It's not just I'm thirsty, right? Like we're underhydrated humans in general. Like most people don't drink enough water. But just because I should be drinking water and I am a little bit thirsty doesn't mean that I'm going to go get the water.
Or the $10 bottle of water, right?
I'm not going to get it. Yeah. But it's, but what's the impact of that thirst? And, it's interesting. Some people are going to be motivated by, your body is 70% water and you should be drinking or whatever, you should be doing this. Some people are going to be motivated by, hey, you're not going to get any water when you get into that airplane.
It's the scarcity for
it. Really depends.
That's the airport. It's like you don't have access.
Yeah,
you need to get access. And then there's going to be no access if, like, you don't know, like, it's going to take you an hour to board. Like, what are you going to do? So, like, you don't want to get caught in, you need that safety net.
You need it. Yeah.
And so that's the value proposition. It's like, you're not going to have it. It's scarcity.
You're not going to have it. If you think about a highway, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know, New Jersey Turnpike, at every rest area, it says X number of miles to the next rest area.
Okay.
And that's another example of like, well, you're not going to be able to get, you have to stop here. You're not going to have a bathroom for the next 100 miles,
transparency. In there, that's their value proposition. They're like, hey, this is it.
You better go here or you're out of luck.
Unmet need.
Yeah, you're out of luck. That's the unmet need. And the impact of the unmet need. Like you're not going to be able to go to the bathroom for the next 100 miles, buddy.
So how this applies to business and something that I want all of you to think about. So specifically we talked about understanding within the value proposition framework, and we had a bunch of worksheets and that they're all specifically on how can you define your value proposition that's different based on the unmet needs of the customer, and what makes your products different? So what are the benefits that are not just, it's just the benefit, but what makes it different? And one of the things that we talked about specifically, and I shared an example of, I learned the strategy from, at a CEO school retreat from another member, and Sophia, and her, she's like, oh, I use a strategy for every time. And this can apply for your go-to-market strategy. Every year we do this for our company. But even when you're just sending an email campaign or on your social or on whatever, you always have to think about your value proposition and what needs you are fulfilling for that end customer. So we talked about stakeholders, who the stakeholders are, who the who are the influencers for the decision maker, who are the decision makers. So we went through all the segmentation within the masterclass for how do you define the value pyramid. But specifically how this can apply immediately to all of you was this FML principle. So even when you're sending out an email, you know your ideal customer, you know the segment, you know who you're targeting, but what is that benefit from an FML perspective? So F stands for financial, M stands for mindset, and L stands for lifestyle, right? If you can not just tap into here's the benefit, it'll save you time, or here's a scarcity piece, or here's how can you tap into it from an FML financial perspective, a mindset perspective, and a lifestyle perspective? So I gave the example of CEO school, right? And the financial, whenever we send an email or whatever, we talk about the money element. This is, you're going to get more revenue. So yes, invest in coming into the platform and becoming members or coming to a retreat and doing whatever, but you will 10x that investment because you will grow that freedom of dollar, right? That's the financial gain, right? Then you have the mindset, which I think a lot of people miss in talking about in the value proposition. Yeah. So it's literally that feeling of going from overwhelmed to organized, right? Working in your business to getting an opportunity to working on your business. Right? That mindset of going from founder to CEO, from feeling, that imposter syndrome to feeling confident, right? That's still a mindset benefit.
Yeah.
And then the lifestyle benefit, right? So we always try to incorporate the L, which is the lifestyle component, right? So what is that lifestyle component? You're able to have more time with your family, right? You're able to take Fridays off so that you can spend the day in your creative zone or traveling. What does that look like for you? You can have a 20-hour work week, right? Whatever the lifestyle element of it. So that's part of how you can take that unique value proposition of what you do, why you do it better, but then take it a step further to apply these principles so that that messaging lands directly with your end decision maker, right? Not just the ICP or not just the ICA, which is the ideal client profile. So we went into such great conversation, and it's 2.0 of the ICP work on understanding all of who we're talking to and then how we talk to them to really define what makes you unique. And guess what? If we do that every single time on a proposal, if we do that when we're sending it an email, right? When we're sending our messaging on our site, we will actually not only attract exactly what we're trying to attract, we will actually close that end client and customer.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was just thinking about this when you mentioned the FML. That lifestyle component could also be, I know when I would have heard that a year ago, Priya would have said, oh, but we are a B2B company. It's not going to be relevant for us because the way that these large companies make decisions is different. But and I know that there are some people who are going to be like me who are like, oh, well, that's not relevant because we're not you're talking about CEO school. It's, it's an individual, but don't forget service-based, people who are where I was a year ago, don't forget that there is an individual at the end of that. Right. So, it might be something as simple as, within an email. And I did this just 2 weeks ago where I knew that what that individual might be, they were a gatekeeper. So I did need to get them to, and we talk about gatekeepers, influencers, all those things in the masterclass. But, they were a gatekeeper, so I needed to get them on board. But I was thinking, when I wrote that email, I was thinking about our value proposition, but I was also thinking about what their pain point is going to be. But the pain point varies based on what time of the year it is, too. So it's, it's a dynamic thing. You have your core value proposition, but you also kind of adjust it, you tweak it. And we talked about this in the masterclass. It's not a completely different value proposition. You're not going to drive yourself crazy trying to do 20 different value proposition. You have your core value proposition, but you tell a slightly different story and you just put a different lens on it. You think about like the filters, right? Your Instagram filters, whatever it is, or TikTok. I don't really do TikTok, but you do the filters. It's just applying a different filter onto your value proposition.
And then you have that template, you have that framework. And then depending on, at the end of the day, who the stakeholder is, that messaging can be adjusted slightly, but still with the same value proposition, but having that end decision maker, influencer, stakeholder, gatekeeper, whoever it is on the other side in mind to get you to the next phase of landing that client or customer. And then lastly, you take that and then you adjust your pricing based on the value, right? And that's the magic of when it happens, because when you can actually land those things on the benefit ladder, on the value proposition ladder, on the FML, and your client's like, yes, 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 value, right? Because you're adding all this value, then you can actually charge your worth.
Yeah,
right,
absolutely.
Right, Pia?
So pricing is a funny thing. We talked about this last year.
It's an art, not a science.
No, it is. It is. And, for me, I think that, and I told you this earlier, I cringe when I think back to what I was charging and how I was charging. It is cringeworthy, guys, let me tell you.
And cringing, hold on, I'm going to pause you right here. There's nothing wrong with cringing. I actually really value when we cringe, and I'll tell you why. We only cringe when we look back and we know we're better now.
Yeah.
So when you cringe at something from the past, right, and you're like, oh, I cringed because my pricing was so bad. Oh, my website was I cringed looking at it. Or, my first podcast was I can't even listen to my first. Well, you cringe because you've gotten better. Right? So let's celebrate cringing, because that means I am growing, right?
Celebrate
we are growing
cringe.
And we can look back and cringe. So let's celebrate the cringe.
Celebrate the cringe. I love it. That's a t-shirt that we need.
Celebrate the cringe.
So I cringe about the pricing, but, I think I could have charged more and it would have been fine. I think I definitely could have done it. But that process of going through and creating those different verticals and creating those product sets and doing that, it almost, and cleaning up our value story and cleaning up our value proposition, it helped me justify to me that I should be charging and how I should be charging. And it's just, I challenge anyone who's in a service-based business to see how you can make some of those changes, right? If you're charging hourly, if you're charging, if that's how you're approaching, there's nothing wrong with it. That's how I used to do it. Try to take that hourly rate out of it and charge. Maybe you start by charging by project, or maybe you start by, create some type of a routine, or create some, find a way to find that monthly recurring revenue, find that there's opportunities. Trust me. Again, I've been on a journey, so I can tell you from the other side that there are opportunities to fix that up and clean that up.
I agree, and I also want to add that this also applies to all businesses, including product-based businesses, because I think when you have what's different about your product as well,
true.
It increases your value.
I should specify, it's a no-brainer for product-based businesses. I think the service-based businesses are very resistant, because I was.
We're resistant because pricing is based on fear, right? And as women, we have not even had a seat at any table. So when we put in our value proposition, right, or we already are discounting ourselves. We are the number one person to discount ourselves. I was CEO for the last 10 years of a very fast growing company. I've probably put out when I left, we were at 400 employees. But over the last decade, I've probably had about 700 offer letters go out, right?
Yeah.
And maybe, 200 through the years that have changed, maybe 100 probably didn't accept or whatever it was. Like I have gone through. I use we a lot. I have literally gone through. There was not a single month since I started the company that I've never not hired. Every single month I've added team members across. Like, this is like literally like the thing that's part of my day to day is hiring, training, scaling. So the amount of offer letters I've put out in my life, and I will say that men at every stage, it didn't matter when we were early stage startup, whether we had funding or not, whether we had millions of dollars of funding, whatever it was, literally I put in an offer letter. If it's a man on the other side, 9 out of 10 times I got like, oh, well, here's my counter, or here's what I'm looking for. Or I just had it like my family, right? And so I'm scaling on whatever it was, the man countered. And I will tell you that 8 out of the 10 women would blindly accept my offer, right? And there was always a range, right? And it's not like I'm under discounting or underpaying, but we had a range of where the salary bands were. Right? And you kind of stay within that salary band. But if I really wanted somebody, there was a stretch that I had. Like you have a stretch point, no matter what, just like any product service company that you want to work with, you have this, you're willing to pay a little more for like the one that you want. Right?
That's true.
And so if you do a good job of what this applies to all of it, right? On your value proposition, or if you're confident enough in your value proposition, then you're confident enough to say, this is what I'm worth. Right? But women would blindly first offer letter, just so grateful for getting that opportunity and accepting the opportunity. And so we have to make sure that we're thinking about the value. And now this is a conversation that's like, this isn't a new conversation happening, right? No. So I'm so glad this conversation on pay parity has been happening for years, but this also applies to our businesses and the products and services that we offer, to price them based on value as well. And since we have been so left out of the conversation for so long, there is that fear of like, man, I just got to the table and like, I just really want to win the customer. It's true. You discount yourself because you just want to win.
And I noticed this with startup founders that I mentor. I'm supposed to be talking to them about their go-to-market strategy or their value communication strategy or something like that. But a good component of the time that I spend with them is around like, hey, look at all this stuff you've done. Look at like you think that like they think that they're back here when they're actually like a lot further ahead, and they think that they need to do more, they need to have more, they need to have whatever. And I was like, hey, why isn't this in your pitch deck? Why isn't that like, why haven't you like, why isn't like, you have all this data, how come you're not telling that story? Oh, but I thought like this one was not like, no, you have way more than you think you do. And that happens, I want to say like 9 out of 10 times.
Yeah, it's the fear, right? It's that fear of like, we want to get in, or we're undercrediting ourselves.
Yeah.
And so let this be that reminder. And it's not just about saying like, oh, because, Suneera and Priya here in CEO School says like, this is what we need to do it. That's easy. Let's do that. But I do believe that for me, when I put in the work and I see it, then it clicks for me.
Yeah.
And so that's why like this exercise of doing your unique value proposition, doing the work on the stakeholders, doing the work on your unique, like what you're bringing to the table, the benefits, the unmet need and how you're doing it, and doing that level of work, then validates yourself. Like at least it, like, I'm like, you know what? Oh shit, I did this work. And I'm like, look at this, look at, we are really great. And I am really great. And we are worth a lot. And look at the value that we're doing. Yeah. So sometimes like these things for us as women are super important, to do these workshops, to put in the work. And because it's not just about, oh yeah, I know I want to do it. It gives us the confidence, because when we have it on paper, when I know it's not just me, but when I have it written down and I see the plan and it's pretty and it's like, it makes sense, it clicks for me.
Organized. Yes. I love a good spreadsheet.
Yes. And it does. It just clicks in a different way, and it gives us the confidence.
Yeah.
Right. And it gives us the confidence. So do the work, right? Don't just do it the first time around. And Priya, you've been such an expert, like, for the last couple of years. I'm so excited to see your company grow. Congratulations on all the success. I love that you're mentoring startups now. We can all find you inside of the CEO School platform. You're super active and like a great mentor for all the women inside the platform. But where can people also reach out to you and find you and learn about how they can work with you as well?
Find me on LinkedIn. You can always shoot me an email, shoot me a message in the platform too. I'm available.
And she's at Lalitha Priya, and I'll be linking that also in the show notes. And we'll try to put in some things from the masterclass so you guys can take a look. But come join in, come say hi to Priya. This is exciting stuff. And go focus on like the value, right? Be the water bottle at the airport, not the one at Costco. I hope today we left you a little inspired and excited. And I know I'm ready to do the work again. Like every year we do the work. My whole team is here. We're going to do the work again. And it's important to define the different product, your product, your value proposition, and adjust it, right? Adjust it based on as you're growing. You deserve it and you're worth it. So I'll see you next time at CEO School. Thank you for tuning into today's show. If you loved it, leave us a review. We are so proud to bring you authentic conversations, game changer expert guests, and valuable content on and offline. The best compliment you can give us is by screenshotting today's show and tagging us on Instagram at CEO School and at Suneera Madani. We are obsessed with swag, so don't be surprised if we want to send you some. Thanks for tuning into class today, and remember, nothing bad happens when women make more money.